My name's Bill Dale. I'm a small business owner, entrepreneur, and 3 years ago I decided to build a little application that would help me track employees and consultants worldwide that would make my life and my payroll and gal's life a lot easier. 3 years ago we kind of conceptualized the application, and about a year and a half ago we released the application. We decided to release it as a SaaS application because that seemed to be the buzz of the internet marketing place, and we thought that some of our clients could use the application too. As we started going forward, we just had web only, so we were stuck in a one-dimensional data paradigm. And it just kind of dawned on me and some of my associates that we should look at how do we expand in getting into the telephony world and using the phone. In the marketplace, at least in the time and attendance business, there's a lot of people out trying to build embedded Linux devices, appliances using biometrics, and using a lot of other advanced features. And so as we analyzed that, it still looked very complicated, but the thing that just kept coming back to me was everybody's got one of these things in their pocket. And instead of trying to sell yet another widget that somebody has to manage, maintain, support, ship, develop, so forth, so on, why don't we just tap into something that's as pervasive as the cell phone and turn that into a punching mechanism. So as I was going through my journey trying to figure out where I should end up, asterisks came up as you start Google searching. And then this FreeSwitch product came up, and I'm thinking, wow, this is interesting, this is new, and I was kind of reading the story and the profiles and trying to make an assessment and a judgment, downloaded some code, looked at it. I have a big vision for the company. We want the application to scale immensely. We're already operating in about 15 different countries, and I kind of wanted to make sure that whatever we built would scale and grow as the business grows. And so the multi-threaded aspects of FreeSwitch and some of the other advanced features just made it, and the community and the team that were behind it just made it seem like a simple decision for us. So we chose FreeSwitch to move forward. And so essentially, as we were kind of going through our discovery on how to put this application together, we're trying to figure out various aspects of what we need to kind of close loop the whole data flow for end-use customers. And so what we came across is the concept where we could take the inbound phone call. Originally we were thinking that we could use an 800 number. Is that me? An 800 number or local phone numbers, and then our marketplace told us that if somebody's at a residence and they want to punch in on a fine clock, that homeowner does not want to see a long distance charge in their bill. So as we went through and decided how we were going to put things together, we decided we had to have a toll-free gateway that could generate the inbound call through our PSTN gateway. That would then in turn communicate with our FreeSwitch server that's in one of our data centers, which currently is in San Diego, California. And then that would then in turn communicate through a web service that we'd write on our application, which would in turn do a database call to either punch in or punch out that employee and then go back and return back and then so forth. And so that's from an architectural overview, that's how our application works. I like to keep things really, really simple. I don't like to get off on extraneous paths. I don't like to deviate into cutting edge, bleeding edge applications that just do nothing, that don't scale and make your life very difficult to support when you have real users and real customers using your application every day. So the first step is let's take a look at the first part of solving this puzzle on how can we turn a simple handset into a phone device. So we had to contract with a PSTN gateway. Quite frankly, 9 months ago, I didn't even know what a PSTN gateway was. I only have about 9 months of experience with VoIP applications, and 4 or 5 of those was just trying to figure out how to make FreeSwitch work. The first month I just spent just trying to figure out how to compile it. And so this was a big learning curve. So if an older guy like me who has to wear these things can figure it out, I'm sure that a lot of other people can figure this thing out too. So I went down the path. I saw the iCalls logo on the FreeSwitch, so hey, let's just use iCall. And so contracted with them, got my 800 numbers, routed to my server, then started figuring out what the dial plan is, kind of figured out that, from time to time, these PSTN gateways go down, bling, my phone starts ringing, because when I got hundreds of customers that are now starting to use the telephony app, so I decided to get another provider so that now I have a backup plan. And so I put in a secondary SIP trunk and then figured out how to register multiple gateways. And as I started using the application, I realized how elegant the design of the application is, and it's really to the credit of the team on what they built and how somebody like me can just walk in and put what they've worked diligently on putting to work into the marketplace. So the next step after we get the PSTN gateway done, we now have the FreeSwitch server that talks to the PSTN gateway. And I learned some really neat things like Sophia status, learned how to go through the command line, see what's going on, look at my calls, that kind of stuff. And then there's a couple of features that I needed to allow my PSTN gateway to interoperate with my application, and then my FreeSwitch server, and then FreeSwitch to interoperate with my web service. And originally we used mod HTTP, and we did an update about 2 weeks ago. We found out that our application broke, and it was a mad scramble. And then I realized that there was some issues with mod HTTP, and they replaced it with curl. And then that in turn actually made the application even easier to use because we no longer had to deal with key pairs coming into the app. We can now just deal with the raw data coming from the web service, which made our application run that much more simply. To me, simple is better. The simpler it is, the easier it is to support, the easier it is to scale, the easier it is to problem solve, the easier it is just to maintain, and that reflects into increased profitability in your company. So that's what I like. I like that kind of stuff. So initially I didn't like the switch, but now that I see the vision, I really like it. So kudos for dumping mod HTTP and putting mod curl in its place. And then the last thing, you have to configure the dial plan. Currently we have 2 inbound 800 numbers coming in. Thanks to some of the support staff, I was able to figure out how to really master regex. Now what a beautiful, simplistic, just killer little app. That is the glue that holds the internet together, is regex. I mean, that thing is used everywhere. That thing is unbelievable. Really, really like it. And so with regex, I'm able to combine multiple gateways and do decisioning and flipping things in and out on the XML configs, and really, really like it. It's tremendous. It's the glue that holds all the XML together for FreeSwitch. And then I just figured out that I just transferred the inbound call based on the inbound DID to an extension that I have that executes my Lewis script, and away it goes. And then lastly, execute Lewis script based on extension. So that's how my FreeSwitch server works. And then so now I got the call. It comes in. It comes on an 800 number. It routes to my FreeSwitch server. My FreeSwitch server now can communicate with my web service. And so my web service is nothing but a URL that I do a bunch of get variables, and then it does some stuff behind the scenes, and it returns back a value, goes back to FreeSwitch, parses it, and then informs the user that they're either punched in or punched out of the system. So in the web service, I set up a listener so that FreeSwitch could talk to it, put in some simplistic security. I buttoned it down by some source IP because I didn't want anything to start hitting the front end of my web server. It operates through SSL, so I can do a call, and then I pass in a token. I basically create a hash, pass a token in so that I can authenticate the get variables to make sure that if they can spoof my source IP, then they got to figure out how to crack the payload that's going in on my call to my web service. And then for my web service, there's a lot of different ways to return data back out of web service. XML seems to be all the buzz. It's great if you have unstructured data. But I did my data was very, very structured. It was real simple. I passed back a 1 if it was an in punch, 2 if it was an out punch, and 3 meaning that you didn't authenticate. And then if you got a 1 or 2, then I passed back the time date stamp. So no need to have the complexity of trying to roll that up in XML, send that back out, and then unwind the XML, do decisioning on the FreeSwitch server. In the CSV file, while it's kind of nice, I decided to go fixed length just using the mid function, and it's lightning fast. It's real simple. First variable tells me the status. Second var from position 2 to the end tells me the time date stamp. Done. I like things that are like that. They're real simple, they're really clean, they're easy to understand, easy to support, and they scale. So I went with the fixed length string, passed it back on my web service, back to FreeSwitch, and away it goes. So the last step of this process, of this dance of sorts between multiple servers, is a database call. So I call a component layer, a web service layer within my web service, which basically calls a stored procedure that passes in the variables. Executes the stored procedures for the pass in variables, and the deal with it is that my customers they're going to work, they may be late, their business types, fast. Any type of performance lags that I get is unacceptable. So I try to tune my queries and all the performance such that my database calls are between 40 and 80 milliseconds, and on average we're typically about that, typically even faster, as low as 15 to 25 milliseconds. And so that's real important because somebody's coming in late, or you get a lot of people punching in at 8 a.m. on a particular time zone. You get a lot of temporary traffic in your network, so you want to make sure you tune your app. And originally when I started down this path, I was trying to use the ODBC connector layer, and I figured, hey, I'll just go right to the database. Sounds like a great idea. Until I realized that from time to time we do certain database activities and this, that, and other things. And so you can't really guarantee that our write database is always online due to certain transactions, but if we go through a web service, we can easily put in an expiration so that after like 1 second, it'll come back and say, please see your supervisor to log in. Because the last thing you want to be able to do from a domain point of view is that you have an employee, they're at their time clock and they're waiting for the stupid thing to work. That reflects back into a complaint to the manager, which comes back down to us as a customer service call. I would much rather send the employee off to work and say, please see your supervisor, than to keep them waiting in limbo because you have a slow database connection or other things. So we opted to go with a web service because it basically, it dies more gracefully, if you will. It's a really clean exit point. And so, how's my time going? So essentially that's our application. So that's kind of the framework of how I put it together. So let me demo the application. So at this point, is there any questions before I demo the application? Feel free to raise your hand. Yes, ma'am.
How do you provide high availability on this FreeSwitch?
I don't. Well, actually I do. The way, not on FreeSwitch, but on the service. What I do is I have 2 FreeSwitch servers, 2 physical servers, connected to 2 different PST and gateway providers that connect to my load balance web service. So that if, for example, iFile goes down for maintenance, I publish the flow route number, and flow route can then. And so with all the employees, they keep both 800 numbers in our system, so if one doesn't work, they know to call the other one. And statistically, we've never been down based on that paradigm. Yes, sir?
What database are you using?
I use Postgres. Yeah, Postgres rocks. Postgres. That's great. Postgres, it has native interval data types. It has time date stamps. It's got time. It's got date. It's got time date stamps with time zones, without time zones. Our application is a multi-site, multi-time zone application. It works globally. We have customers all over the world, and we support every time zone available by the Linux operating system. So here's the app. And, so if I go to employee, it probably force them to log in again. Does the network go?
Good question.
Yeah, we're up. So I got Troy in here. You know, I got a bunch of former NFL quarterbacks, as you can see here. Here they all are, you know, Troy, Terry, Drew Brees. Yes. Anyway, so for the application to work, I publish 2 800 numbers, which are right here. And so let me pull up the CLI here too, so you can see what's happening behind the scenes. Great. And, okay, so that is creator. Yeah, all right, so, okay, so plan B.
You can try another access point under your wireless connection in
Okay.
the right-hand corner. Try ClueCon.
Okay.
Until everybody else jumps onto it.
And the beach ball of death.
Let's just get to it. So, because the whole idea is it's supposed to work off the phone, so, so I thought one of my 800 numbers will do 8889 punch. So, is that so in Troy, in this particular case, he's 1117, so I just punch in 1117 and then the pound sign. And then 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so it's that simple, really simple, fast. And the cool thing about it is anyway, they could click the who's in report. They can show who's in, when they punched in, number. Let me see if I can get the wireless in. Go back and do ClueCon 3, okay?
It doesn't work.
Go to the one that says Tony.
Tony.
That's not everyone for you.
Thanks, Tony. Tony. And so this is where it dance.
Restart the browser.
It's working. There we go. It's really slow. Because it just really focus on it. There we go. Okay. It's alive. Okay, so now we can log into the application. There you can log in the application. There we go. Okay, so now we're back online. And then you come in there and you can see the here. Try to go back to plan A. So network slow for you guys? Yeah, when secure shell is that slow, that tells me the network is being used heavily.
Because everybody probably joined it.
I didn't
But of
know.
course, and there's the wheel of death. Okay, so yeah, the demo really requires me to have interactive network. So that's my app. Any questions? Yes, sir.
How do you authenticate people?
Pardon me?
How do you authenticate people?
I authenticate the users through two key pairs: the department ID, which is tied to their account, and their employee PIN number. In the future, We want to roll out, there's some open source authentication technology. In the future, we want to be able to just have the users state their job code or the department ID, and then two things happen. One, we capture that code, which allows us to tag that punch pair, and two, it allows us to create basically a data signature of their voice. And between the department ID and the signature, we can authenticate that user in our database and key them in. But we want to roll that out probably springtime, but we're doing testing on that now. Yes, sir.
Do you do any validation based on the number that's being called from? In other words, calling
Yes.
from cell phone is different than calling from your desk phone?
Yes, we do. One of the neat things about the app is under groups, we have what we call caller ID security. So we can actually limit punching from an employee based on pre-approved phone number lists. So here's a funny story. I got a call from a client that said, "Hey Bill, your system doesn't work. All my employees says it sucks and we're canceling service." And I said, hold on, let me check. If you have a bug, we'll fix it. Just give us a chance. You know, we're a small business. You're a customer. We'll do anything for you guys. So I was looking into it, debugging, had my guys look into it. We couldn't figure out what the heck he was talking about. Comes to find out he had caller ID security on, and all of his employees were essentially late to work, and they were trying to punch through their cell phones versus being on site because they provide in-home medical services for essentially older folks, you know, dispensing medications, cleaning rooms, that sort of thing. And so we went from, you guys are idiots, to, my gosh, you saved my business, because if anything would have happened to any of their clients and their people were supposed to be on site providing these services, it would have been a huge lawsuit. And so now what happens is that he's now transitioned to a mismanaged result to where now he has a fully managed workforce that's in the field, showing up on time, performing the services that he's contractually obligated to perform. And that's because of the ability to pass in the caller ID, looking up a pre-approved punch, and allowing an employee to basically punch in and out of our system. So it was a real big win for us. But that was a classic case of, you know, lemon to lemonade. So it was really good. It's a really big account for us too. Yes, sir.
And then kind of a follow-up is, have you thought of doing anything with sort of verifying that the person is still available later in the day, and I can call back to them to see if they're still...
That's a great idea. No, we haven't. Our big focus right now is what I call actionable information. And so one of the things that we're looking at doing is using the features available in FreeSwitch to push out voice reports. Like, for example, under our employee section, if an employee is late, we can send out a text message to that supervisor saying that Joey's late or Susie's late, or if they leave early, the same type of information. That's a text-based. Essentially, that's just an email trick. We send it to their vText email gateway, and it goes into SMS. But in the future, what FreeSwitch has afforded me as a small business guy is the ability to essentially do text-to-speech to push out voice reports to managers and supervisors with actionable information that will help them perform their jobs more be able to do a better job with their job, or better job, be able to perform their task better, you know what I'm saying. So, and that's the things that we're looking at. We're looking to just put out the information that's needed so that people can do better jobs that increases their productivity and their efficiency in the workforce. Yes, sir.
Just curiosity, have you ever considered using the proximity stuff like femtocells with this sort of setup to find, so the person, when they come within a certain cell range, it authenticates based on that as well?
To restate your question, what you asked is, have I considered using any geocoding or any locational-based information? Yeah, the answer is yes and no. The problem is that most people have cell phones. They have one feature you can count on, one feature you may be able to count on. The feature you can count on is dial tone. The feature you may be able to count on is text messaging. With respect to geocoding or any proximity information, you can't count on that. It's not transmitted as part of an inbound phone call. All you get really is the caller ID. And you get a few other pieces of information, but that's all that you really get to use. If people have more advanced phones and they can pass that information along, then that's a possibility. But from what I've seen so far, I don't capture that. Therefore, I can't use that to do any type of spatial analysis on those type of users. In the future, to the extent that I can collect that information, and that's a pervasive technology, which I can argue that it isn't, then we will definitely adopt, use, and perform additional reporting against that information. But right now, yes, we've considered it. No, it's not available on every phone. And yes, in the future, we would love to have that information so we could track proximity of employees and also where they punched in and punched out. Yes, sir.
So the architecture of this is we have a small script that queries web services from some other location. Right? All the logic in the database is not happening on the box of the
Correct. Yes. The application logic is happening in the component layer within the web services, and then it just executes database calls. Yes. Yes, sir.
What is the reason for not using the A number as a sole authentication?
You ready for this? I don't even know what an A number is. Again, I've used FreeSwitch for 9 months. I finally figured out what a DID was a few months ago. I just know what the data looks like, and so I don't even know how to answer your question.
The number of the cell phone,
Mm-hmm.
the originating number
Yeah.
of the cell phone.
Yes, we use that. We use that. Excuse me, my mistake. Yes, we use that. If you look over here at the time cards in the Troy pin, we just timed in. It's crazy. So essentially, we tag that. There's a note associated with every punch pair. We know whether it came from the web. We know whether it came from a phone network or it came from a cookie-enabled browser based on our security paradigm. And that's always tracked, and you can do audits so you know where that phone call came from. So the answer is yes, we do use that. Yes, sir.
Isn't it a worse problem when they log in from the web? You have less information about them, where you want to tell them you have to log in from the phone, because at least they get the phone number you called in from?
It just depends on the company and what their preference is. The web is easier because, again, when an employee logs in, all they get is an in if they have not punched in or an out. We make it really simple. We have sort of a we have sort of a Google mentality in how we build the app. Specifically, we only show the information that's actionable to the employee at the time they see it. We don't give them all these options. If you're an employee, you get in and out. That's it. If you're a manager, you can log in and see all your employees under management. We have a segmented permissions model. And if you're the administrator of the account, you get to see all the information. Did I answer your question? Okay. Yes, sir.
See if you can go on the internet now.
Okay. Please. Genius. Okay. Thank you, sir. So for example, this is where Troy almost. Okay.
Distractions.
Oh, gosh, yeah. Motion distractions. I'm taking that home with me. So if you look at this punch pair here, you can see here where Troy Aikman. You guys read my email?
You know all your secrets.
Your spam.
Hey, look, we got a new customer. Labor Time Tracker just signed up right there. Okay. All right, so you see here where it says in punch original, Troy Aikman from phone, from my cell phone, so we track that. And then over here, what I was talking about under groups, under security, we can caller ID by security. So we can put a list of pre-approved phone numbers here, and then all you do to enable it is you just go to your employee like Troy Aikman, and then you just basically turn on phone punch security off and on, and then he will not be able to punch through the phone system. But I think all the developers of FreeSwitch, because you gave a guy like me who is really a business level application developer guy, a raw material, an ability to expand my vision from a one-dimensional data world only to now I'm two-dimensional, where I have data and voice. And if it wasn't for the efforts of the FreeSwitch crew, I wouldn't have this ability, this opportunity to expand at least my horizons, my marketplace, and apply these increased values to my clients. And one of the things that I like to do is, when I add these additional services, I like to do so without increasing my costs. And one of the things that FreeSwitch allowed me to do is that I can now negotiate wholesale PST rates, which are very, very inexpensive. So that allows me to basically include that in my service without having to charge a cents per minute to my news customer. Again, I like to keep things really simple. You know, in California, where I'm from, in San Diego, we have a fast food chain called In-N-Out Hamburgers. I don't know if you've ever eaten there before, but the menu is just real simple. It's just like 3 items, you know. It's just very simple. It keeps it straightforward. It doesn't get into the whole plethora of options. And I like to run my business to where things are really simple so that when I'm discussing with a client, you know, what it costs, it makes things really simple. And so FreeSwitch, because I'm able to helm the technology that allows me to add this feature to my application, allows me to keep my costs down low, which allows me to in turn reflect those costs to my end-use customers, which allows them to consume my services. And it makes them more efficient, makes me grow, they become more efficient, and we all kind of win. But kudos to FreeSwitch for affording me this opportunity to bring these new enhanced services to my clients and my customers. Okay, any more? Yes, ma'am.
What's your uptime on your FreeSwitch server, and what's the maximum number of calls that you have?
Our uptime on our FreeSwitch server, it's never been down. And we started with 103, then we went to 104, and I like odd numbers, so we did the 5, the 3, 5, 7, 9. It actually didn't do 9, it went right to 10, pre-10. That's where I had the bug on the curl versus HTTP. But yeah, it's really never gone down. It's served us really, really well. The only outage we ever had really has been with our PST and gateway. We had some issues with iCall going down, but outside of that, that's pretty much it. Our service has been rock solid for us.
Current calls?
Pardon me?
Current calls?
We have an interesting distribution because it takes on average about 22 seconds to do a punch into our system, to hear the prompt, to key in your data, and then to authenticate that. So really, we don't have a big concurrency number. Our numbers are really based on availability. You know, we're not, quite frankly, we really don't tax this. It's really all about availability and performance. It's not about volume. So we don't really run high concurrent numbers. So if I was to tell you, it's maybe in the 200 or 300 range, which is nothing. It's just noise compared to the performance of a system like this. But down the road, as we grow, I feel very, very confident that, you know, we could stake our reputation on this type of system so that we can grow and take on, you know, as we grow our international business more and more. Okay, there was another question. Another question. Okay, that's my presentation. Hope you liked it.